Top 10 Most Dangerous Weight Cuts in MMA History, Part 2. MMA is a brutal sport, and one of the most common, yet controversial practices in MMA is that of weight cutting. Many fighters choose to fight at their natural weight so that they are not exhausted before a fight. However, most choose to cut down a weight from their regular weight to have a size advantage. Oftentimes, fighters will employ a method of dieting and dropping a ton of water weight in order to step on the scale at weigh-ins and meet the limit of a weight class. Despite some athletic commission attempts to help solve the weight-cutting crisis, it still remains. It's worth noting that the UFC has done nothing at all to curb weight cutting, as fighters will miss multiple times and still be allowed to attempt to dehydrate themselves down and nearly kill themselves again. As a result, most fighters dehydrate themselves down to unhealthy weights in order to make certain weight classes, and it has resulted in some absolutely terrifying stories. Some fighters have been known for cutting extreme amounts of weight in a dangerously short time frame. Let's have a look at the top 10 of the biggest weight cuts in recent UFC history. Yoel Romero, UFC 221, UFC 225. The Cuban, former UFC fighter, looks like a Greek god and hits like a truck. The Soldier of God has fought most of his career at middleweight. Romero has a huge body frame for the 185-pound division, and many think his weight cut starts from 220 pounds. Romero had not so good 2018 with respect to cutting weight. At UFC 220, he missed the 185-pound limit by 3 pounds. Even though he defeated middleweight champion Luke Rockhold, he could not win the title. After that, history repeated itself later in the year at UFC 225, when Romero was 1 pound overweight for his rematch with Robert Whittaker. Max Holloway, UFC 218. Max Holloway is the greatest fighter in the history of the division, while some really struggle to cut weight to featherweight. But this doesn't mean it has been a really easy game for him. Holloway's weight cuts raised concern among fans and officials alike. Holloway looked noticeably sunken while weighing in at 145. Along with that, he once struggled to make lightweight on short notice to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov, with the UFC stepping in and stopping his cut after he looked extremely tired at a press call. Holloway's still going strong at 145, but it'll be interesting to see for how long. Mizuto Hirota, UFC Fight Night Japan. Taking on Hani Yahia at 2013, Mizuto Hirota almost could not make it to the contest. Before this featherweight debut, the UFC veteran tried to take the scale to meet the 146-pound limit. However, he nearly passed out on the scale due to him having one of the scariest weight cuts ever seen. Hirota used to fight formerly at lightweight before joining the UFC, even having welterweight bouts under his belt. Therefore, the 145-pound cut was more than challenging for Hirota. At weigh-ins prior to UFC Fight Night in Japan, Hirota was not able to make the 146-pound limit and had to be helped. The video of him swaying on the scale is scary to watch for people to know the perils of weight cutting. Kenny Florian, UFC 136. The incredible weight-cutting stories of Kenny Florian are often underrated. He debuted in the UFC as a middleweight in the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, but he moved down to welterweight because he was undersized for the 185-pound division. Florian didn't stop at welterweight, even having success at lightweight in his career. This was the time when Florian pushed too hard, and he opted to try his hand at one more weight class, featherweight, getting blown away by Jose Aldo in one of his two 145-pound bouts. After looking like death incarnate at the weigh-ins, he would lose by decision and retire shortly thereafter. James Irvin, UFC on Versus 1. The decision to let James Irvin fight at middleweight seems absolutely ludicrous on paper, but it is something that happened in the real world in 2010 at UFC on Versus 1. James Irvin is one of the worst examples of how bad weight cuts can go for a UFC fighter. The longtime veteran usually fought at light heavyweight, but after getting knocked down by Anderson Silva in the Brazilian's 205-pound debut, he was certain for making a chance for his middleweight debut and chose to drop down to 185 pounds. Irvin's one and only fight at middleweight saw him push his body to the limits. Before his fight against Alessio Sakara, the California native Irvin looked to have drained every last drop of water from his body to reach 185 pounds and looked completely unrecognizable at the weigh-ins. The dangerous decision led to criticism from Dana White, and after he was knocked down by Sakara, he would return to a more healthy position at light heavyweight. Mackenzie Dern, UFC 224. There was so much hype surrounding Mackenzie Dern when the Brazilian transitioned from jiu-jitsu to MMA. This elation was more of a concern, as she would miss the strawweight mark of 115 pounds in 2 of her 3 professional fights, which eventually led her to move up in weight and compete at flyweight. Unfortunately, this was not enough to conclude Dern's problems with weight cuts. Thereafter, when she moved back to strawweight and signed with the UFC, her second fight in the promotion was the most horrific one up to date, when she weighed in at a whopping 7 pounds over the 115-pound mark. This was one of the most terrible weigh-in attempts in UFC history, but it served as an alarm call, and she never did any error ever since at the time of this video. Paul Felder, UFC Fight Night 182. Weight cutting is an ordinary routine for UFC fighters, but extreme weight cuts are dangerous. While we have seen some of the extreme weight cuts, Paul Felder's not a UFC fighter who has made a habit of looking like a ghost on the scales. The Irish Dragon replaced Islam Makhachev at UFC Fight Night 182 by accepting a fight against Rafael dos Anjos on 5-day notice. So in order to be within the 155-pound lightweight limit, Felder lost 25 pounds in just 5 days. Incredibly, he made the weight and only lost the bout via split decision. Khabib Nurmagomedov, UFC 254. One of the best UFC fighters to ever step into the octagon, Khabib Nurmagomedov is no stranger to cutting vast amounts of weight during fight week. The Dagestani was planning to fight with Tony Ferguson no less than 5 times in the UFC, and every time it seemed to happen, something unfortunate occurred on either side. Perhaps the only time we could see him fight was at the UFC 209 in 2017, but it got canceled when Nurmagomedov fell ill due to a botched weight cut. It is believed that the Eagle often cuts as much as 40 pounds in weight before he fights, which is nearly a quarter of the 155-pound lightweight limit, and the video of behind the scenes of his brutal weight cut prior to UFC 254 shows how much the process is intense in reality. Chris Weidman on Fox 2. Chris Weidman accepted the fight with Damian Maia on UFC's Fox 2 undercard on a notice of 11 days. He's always been a risk taker. Weidman is a former NCAA Division I wrestler, and the weight cut wasn't even a task for him. He cut 32 pounds in 10 days to make the 185-pound middleweight limit. The weight cut proved to take a toll on Weidman's cardio in the later rounds, but he was able to battle through the pain and avoid the upset. He briefly moved to light heavyweight to avoid cutting so much weight, but was knocked back down to middleweight by Dominic Reyes. Johnny Hendricks, UFC Fight Night 112, UFC 200, UFC 207. Some of the scariest weight-cutting stories in UFC history is one of the former welterweight champion, Johnny Hendricks. His peak saw him lose a fight to George St. Pierre that many still swear he won, but the downfall was incredibly quick and shocking to see. Hendricks looked like a sunken ghost at UFC 200 when he failed to make 170 pounds for a fight against weight struggler Kelvin Gastelum. Hendricks would miss weight again at UFC 207 and move up to middleweight, where he would miss weight again ahead of a fight in 2017. He lost 2 in a row and had an abrupt retirement in 2017. Thus, these are the top 10 most dangerous weight cuts in MMA history. So, this was all about this video. I hope you liked the information given in the video, and if you have anything on your mind, feel free to comment below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to get more videos like this. Also, hit the bell icon to get the notification of the latest updates on the channel, and thanks for watching!